Hi, my name is Ileana, the Star Traveler, and hello, Brazil. It's nice to be here.
So to start with, could you tell us your story? Because we watched quite a few interviews you did on other channels, but many people don't still know your story here in Brazil. Could you tell us your story?
Sure. So the way my story starts is when I was 2 years old. I had been abducted by the Black Drazo reptilians in Sharab Invictus, and a being who looks sort of like the gray harvester, humanoid, but very tall with gray skin and dark black red hair and red eyes. So I had been living in Ukraine at the time. I was born in Ukraine, and they would come in. The reptilians would come in through a black portal. They would open up an energy portal into my bedroom, and I would get taken from my bed as a little child. And I would be taken in underground cavern systems with tunnels that lead up to sort of like a dumb space, the equivalent of a dumb space near the Rostov area. And they would do experiments on my blood, my immune system, and as a result, they literally poisoned my blood and my immune system, and that caused autoimmune disorders and a virus to manifest when I was 4 years old. I ended up in the hospital for 3 weeks with paralysis. I couldn't speak. I had a high temperature. I almost died. And it's a result of them literally putting nanotechnology into my bloodstream, it attacking my immune system, my body, causing the virus. And nobody could explain what the virus was even. They didn't know what it was. They did all kinds of tests and they didn't know. So basically, after that, I had a lot of autoimmune problems for the longest time, migraines, missing time, and kept being abducted until the age of 10. So that's how it started. It started when I was small.
When you say you were abducted, was it a physical experience?
Yes.
Or
yeah,
a projection?
I was physically taken out of my bed, out of my room, into these dark cavern systems by a black portal. Energy portal would open up in the wall near my bed. They would come in, the Black Drazo reptilians, they're about 14 to 16 feet tall. There would be 1 or 2 of them, and they would lead me through the tunnel system into these underground cavern systems in the Rostov, under the Rostov area where they have a base. And they would do experimentation on me.
How did they track you? Why did you attract their abductions?
Honestly, it's probably to do with my soul energy and my soul frequencies, because certain people who have a specific life mission or life force energy, they can easily be tracked. That's what I suspect, because I've always had a role to help bring disclosure to humanity and to talk about these things that are beyond 3D. So I think they wanted to stop me from doing that in the future when I grew up, and they tried a lot of different things. And it almost killed me, but it didn't. I have a strong will to survive and to continue. So that's why I'm here. That's why I think I survived and went on to do my work eventually. So that's how it all started. And when I was about 22 years old to 24 years old, I started remembering experiences of being beamed off planet and meeting Nordics, blonde-haired people, and being beamed up onto the Ashtar Galactic Command ships. So, and they were doing, in 2000, from 2000 to 2011, they were working on repelling the reptilian Draco armadas so they wouldn't invade Earth. So I remember basically being on those ships and doing translation work and sending communications to the other ships where the reptilian incursions were happening. So those ships would basically go out and prevent them from landing on Earth and decloaking. So that was sort of the first memory I had coming back. And Ashtar Galactic Command actually works with some of the secret space program factions like planetary corporations in order to do joint mission work. And so I guess what I discovered through self-hypnosis is that planetary corporations from the Mars basis lent me out to Ashtar Galactic Command on the main command ship to help out with coordinating the prevention so that the reptilians wouldn't attack us in a mass armada. And this was going on from 2000 until 2011. I would be beamed in and out of that ship back to the Mars basis. And this can all happen through the quantum leap time dilation program. So they could literally take you from Earth, change the timeline, beam you out with portal jump room technology on the Mars basis. They can put you anywhere they want in the timeline stream. And it looks like you're still living your life on Earth, but your soul consciousness is also doing something else off world, also in your own body. So they could put you multidimensionally in two different places at the same time. And that's what was happening to me. That's the second thing I remembered. The third thing I remembered
I asked you something about the Ashtar command, because this expression Ashtar command is very strong here in Brazil. People connect to it, and people say they're working with Ashtar command, and some whistleblowers say it's negative, some say it's positive. In your view, what's the role of the Ashtar command in Earth's liberation or the ascension?
It's called Ashtar Galactic Command. And they're military. They're based on Jupiter. They have a command center. They have their own ships. And their role is to protect this galaxy from the Orion Collective, from the Orion Greys, from the Nibu, from the Sakara, from the Dracos. So they're here to make sure we're not invaded actively, openly, where their ships just come and take what they want from this planet. So that's their role. And honestly, Ashtar Galactic Command doesn't just take anyone to work with them. You have to have psychic abilities. You have to have an awareness and a willingness to work hard. So I was doing communications. I was looking at where these incursions were happening of the reptilians so that their smaller scout ships wouldn't get into a planetary orbit. So that's what they had me doing. It was a role of communications. It wasn't battle. It wasn't tactical. It was just streaming data where I was seeing the reptilian scout ships and sending the data to the ship to make sure their other fleet ships could track the smaller reptilian scout ships, because there's the big armada ships and there's the smaller ones trying to get in through the battle, kind of like, because they set up a force field, right, with their ships. So the smaller scout ships were trying to get in through that. And it was my job to make sure they wouldn't, and to relay the information as I was seeing it on the screens live.
Still on the Ashtar Galactic Command, is it one extraterrestrial species, or it's a group of species like the...
It was mainly on that ship, I saw mainly Nordics, blonde people, but they had a lot of other humanoid looking beings on there as well. I was just dealing with mostly Nordic looking beings. That's the best I could describe them. And his name is not Ashtar, and it's not Athena, so it's not the classical names. Ashtar Galactic Command is a name of a military organization. It's not an individual named Ashtar. That's the myth. And basically the way Ashtar Command, where that idea came from, is the CIA. And a lot of channelers claimed to channel Ashtar Command. So I don't think those channelers are channeling that organization. I think they're channeling something very different that's disinformation and interference. So Ashtar Galactic Command is the military organization that has bases and ships on Jupiter, because Jupiter has facilities, astrogalactic command facilities. That's what I recently remote viewed, and that's in my book.
Wow, amazing.
Mhm.
And then you said the third part of your story after you remembered that?
Yeah, the third part of my story was doing a 60 and back, again, quantum leap time dilation, working for planetary corporations on the cybernetics labs on the Mars bases. Some of these bases are protected by domed shielding. It's on the surface of Mars, and some of them are underground. I remember working in the domed bases in the cybernetics labs, creating biological drug serums, biological human cyborgs. I saw some cloning. I wasn't involved in the cloning. I was mainly involved in the genetics works of creating human ET hybrids and working with DNA and genomes. And again, creating smart suits, Neuralink implants, and the biological human cyborgs. That was my job. I also saw the holographic medical pods. I only worked a little bit with that. I never got into one. I never got healing from it. That was just for the super soldiers. I had Neuralink implants, 4 of those in the left side of my brain, that augmented my psychic abilities. It allowed me to download and upload information, to receive information, to get job training. And it also augmented my memory to create memory storage, more memory storage in my brain, and to receive a lot of information to put it into different brain compartments. So it sort of made my brain like a fast supercomputer, if you will. So this is the third part that I remembered. Also meeting a lot of different ETs, the original Mars colonists that still live on Mars. They live in underground cities and colonies. They're humanoid. They look like the Native Americans because they have, you know, sort of the olive skin complexion, or, you know, the golden skin with brown hair, black hair. Some are blonde, but mostly it's predominantly black and brown. Green, brown eyes, tall. Some of them are up to 7 feet tall. And they didn't want the planetary corporations infiltrating their cities and taking over their territories. There's also reptilians, native reptilians on Mars, the mantids, the insectoids, and the ant people. So there's a lot of different beings still living on Mars because the atmosphere wasn't totally destroyed. It still has an atmosphere. Think of it as the Grand Canyon. That's what it's like. Or think of it like Antarctica or Siberia. It's rough kind of topography, geography, and it's very thin air. So you have to wear a smart suit, environmental smart suit when you're outside. Inside the bases, you don't have to, but I always wore the smart suit uniform, and I had plasma laser weapons always, because you never know what can happen on these bases. Planetary Corporations is considered a military organization, so they did give me battle ready training. I was not a super soldier. I was not actively involved in battle missions, but I was battle ready trained. If something happened on the basis, I could protect myself. I had weapons always.
In this 60 and back, at this moment, are you also somewhere else?
No, I'm no longer in planetary corporations. My duty ended, I would say, in 2014, but I was on and off taken on to do work until 2017.
How does it work? From what I've heard from other whistleblowers, there are different ways of going through the 20 and back, in your case, the 60 and back, and not everybody have the same experience to reverse the age reversal process. How was that done for you? And do you know other means for doing that?
Well, you can reverse the aging process through the holographic medical pods, the regeneration tanks, because they have all that technology on planetary corp Mars bases. The way my age was constantly regressed to, even though I was in 60 and back, I was 60, but I looked like 30. It was done through the biological drug serums that I was developing. And they also had the ability to put ET genetics into me and make me look like different ETs and have traits of different ETs temporarily. Then, the genetics dissipates because it was temporary experiments. I didn't want to permanently be an ET with blue skin and be 7 feet tall or something. The only thing I had a boundary about is I didn't want to have a tail. I didn't want to have more than 2 eyes, 2 legs, 2 arms. I preferred humanoid looking bodies for when the ET genetics were tested on me. I said human bodies, humanoid looking ETs, please. Something that will not scare me if I look in the mirror, in the lab. When you look at yourself and you look different, it's fine if I have blue skin, if I'm taller, because they could change the biological serums, drug serums can change your molecular structure of your body. It can make you taller, thinner, shorter, more muscular. It could give you traits of ETs that you might not have. And it was to test out how the human body reacts to that. That was the experiments. And then I would record the results of the experiments and upload that through the Neuralink implants into the holographic databases in the Planetary Corp systems. So this is what I remembered, and it came in through memory recalls, and it came in through self-hypnosis, because memory recalls are bits and pieces, and then you have to put it all together. Because again, I had memories of ET abductions with the reptilians, I had memories of Ashtar Galactic Command, and I had memories of secret space program work. And I had memories of meeting many other extraterrestrial species, working with the Andromedans, Pleiadians, and Arcturians, and the L race. They were teaching me healing. They were teaching me planetary histories, spirituality, ascension. So I have had many experiences, and I was also abducted into Area 51, to the S1 facilities, bioengineering labs, where again, my expertise was genetics. So I was working with hybridization program, human ET hybridizations, and creating augmented beings that are hybrids, human ET hybrids. And some of that had gray DNA in it. And these beings were being grown in regeneration tanks. And then my mind would be wiped with some kind of light technology in the labs. So when they would beam me back home from the portal jumpway teleportation station, I would have fuzzy memories because the lighting system would erase a lot of what I did. But eventually I was able to remember it through hypnosis. So I've had various experiences beyond the 60 and back. So this is kind of what the story is.
I have so many questions, I don't even know where to start. So many things. The first part, when you were abducted by Greys and reptilians.
I was never abducted by Greys, just to clarify.
By the reptilians, okay.
Yeah, the being that the harvester, he had gray skin, but he's not a Grey.
So could you explain exactly what's that? What's that kind of being? What's the role with you and with others in the same situation?
He was, I just call him a harvester being. He's a tall, humanoid looking man with gray skin and black hair and red eyes. He was just monitoring the tests. He wasn't interacting with me. He wasn't talking to the reptilians. He was just standing there watching people suffer while their blood was extracted or changed. And I also saw a lot of children sitting in cages or being chained to the walls. And they were malnourished, almost naked. So it wasn't just me, but I was never put into the cage. The experiments were done on me, and I was led back through the portal, through the caverns, and taken home, and then had my memories somehow psychically erased. I don't know how they did it, but it wasn't through any kind of a technology. It was through their own abilities. erasing the memories. So that's what I remember of that person. I never got his name. All I got was that he's called Shirak Rock. That's what the being is called. I don't really know anything about him. He was just watching as the experiments were done.
I have a question here about the hybridization program. Could you tell us if you know the results? Are the hybrids still living among us, or have they been taken elsewhere? Do we still have this program going on today?
Well, the memories that I had from Area 51, because that's where the hybrids were being grown, they were to be integrated with human society to see how they fit in. So I think it's almost like infiltration of creating human ETs 2.0, stronger, faster, smarter, with psychic abilities. That was the purpose of creating them. They would be picked up later on once they maturated, because they were grown. It wasn't changing human genetics, like taking me, for example, and changing my genetics with the ET stuff. These beings were being grown from, this little embryo in the regen tank to a full human being within a matter of a couple of weeks in liquid, in green, blue liquid. I saw many tanks, like rows of tanks, and I drew this memory recall of this abduction working in these underground labs. And after these beings were maturation, right, fully grown, they would be picked up in a saucer-like craft and taken for training to assimilate them to human society, to get them ready to go on the surface and be part of human society. So this is what would happen afterwards to them that I know.
Would you say the intention behind this was more of a negative intention with these hybrids or not?
I don't know because I was never involved in their training, what they were trained specifically to do. I was involved in creating them, splicing the genetics, human genetics with ET genetics, the material to grow them. That's all I was doing.
And did you mix human genetics with what kind of ET species?
With grays and other beings, primarily grays. I remember gray DNA being spliced with the human DNA, but they looked human. When they started off bald, it took longer to grow human hair. I think that's because of the gray genetics, but they eventually grew hair and they were skinnier than humans, but they weren't short. So I think in the genetics, they upgrade the genetics because they were supposed to look as human as possible because they have to fit in with us. So I think there were experiments, and if the being didn't turn out perfectly in the next round, there were improvements in genetics and they would look more human every time.
I have more of a spiritual question. What's the soul in this body? Where does it come from? Is it from the Earth's matrix, soul matrix, or the grays? How does it work?
Every soul has a unique galactic signature, or it could be an earthbound soul that has never had any other galactic lifetimes from any other planets. It's a first reincarnation, first human soul, first lifetime on Earth, or the soul might have had many lifetimes on Earth. That's more of a earthbound type of a soul. Galactic souls come from other planets, other solar systems, and they incarnate on Earth. So we have many different genetics coming in because a soul keeps everything that it's ever experienced genetically. If you've been an Arcturian in a previous lifetime, you have some percentage of Arcturian in your current genetic makeup. It's not purely human. If you've ever been part of the hybridization programs in past lives or in this, you likely carry the genetics of that hybridization program experiment. Certain percent, you might have gray, you might have reptilian DNA. When I scan myself, I don't have any reptilian or gray DNA in me. I wasn't part of the gray or reptilian experiments. I have Pleiadian DNA, I have Andromedan DNA, I have L race DNA, so that's my primary DNA makeup percentages. So it really depends on where the soul was and what prior lifetimes it's had. That creates its genetics. And the soul is energy frequency. It's all energy that's powering the body. The soul comes in and it's powering the human body. And the soul always has a choice to leave if it wants. So there's no, I don't think it's 100% predetermined how long your life is going to be on this planet or elsewhere. You always have a free will choice to change the course of your soul life if you want.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any knowledge on a multi-dimensional level with this hybridization program, if they were choosing the souls to incarnate in these hybrid bodies or not?
I honestly don't know how the soul comes into that kind of a hybrid body. There is soul snatching technology that can do soul transfer. This is what I know, working on Planetary Corp. They could take the essence of the living soul, put it in an electromagnetic container frequency field, and hold the soul there. They could literally extract the soul that way, pull the energy from the body and put it into that container and transfer it to another body, to a clone, to a cyborg body, to an avatar synthetic body that has nanotechnology, or to another living being. So soul transfer, soul capture, swapping technology exists. So, and it could literally put your soul in container vessels to hold you temporarily, then transfer the soul. So I would imagine to power any type of a body, whether that's grown through hybridization, you need a soul or a portion of a soul piece to power it. So I would imagine they would be getting soul energy from somewhere. I just don't know how they did that in Area 51. Planetary Corp could easily transfer souls left and right. I know how they did that. Area 51, I wasn't part of that particular program with the soul stuff, but I would imagine they do it in a similar way.
Wow, amazing. Some people say there's a theory that the Greys are humans from the future who had some problems with their genetics, and then they came back, and that's how they asked for our DNA or something like that. Do you have any information on that?
No, we are not Greys from the future. We're not them. They're not us. These beings are the Orion Collective, Greys from the Orion Collective, and other Greys. There's organic Greys that are not even associated with the Orion Collective. There's good Greys, there's bad Greys, there's cybernetic Greys, which are not human at all. They don't have many biological, they're not biological components anymore. They're cybernized. So some of these Grey species have tinkered so much with their genetics that it's starting to fail, it's starting to degrade because they altered themselves so beyond humanoid genetics that it's no longer holding the DNA properly. They have mutation anomalies and their genetics is degrading. So that's why they might have been from the future somewhere and come back here when collecting our healthy DNA. And I don't think that was voluntary from us. There have been so many different abductions, women's reproductive systems tested, implanted with Grey fetuses, then taken out of the womb, out of the women's wombs, abducted on the ships and taken out to be grown in the regen tanks, the wombs, the hybrids, DNA collected, from semen from men, eggs from women collected. So there's different hybridization programs running from different Grey species and reptilians and other beings. I say most of it is not voluntary for people. It's abduction. It's violating human free will choice to do this. But I personally do not think that these Greys are us from the future. I don't think they're us.
I like that option.
Well, they're not. This is part of disinformation, I think. Human evolution is not meant to go the way of the Greys. because they're frail, they're losing touch with their soul connections, they're losing touch with reality, they're losing touch with what it means to be organic beings, because some of them are connected to a hive mind and linked like a hive. So they're losing connection with the soul, what it means to have a soul, to have energy, to organically, spiritually evolve. They're going the way of nanotechnology and cybernetics. We're going the way of organic evolution, spiritual evolution, using our own energy abilities, expanding the soul. Once you lose touch with that, you're no longer organic and you're no longer connected to the soul frequency as you should. It gets lost in translation, basically. That's what happened to those types of grays. And now they want to get back their organic states and taking DNAs from humans and other human-like species to try to correct what they've done, but it's not easy. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So they're just trying to prevent themselves from going extinct. That's the situation with those beings.
Since we're talking about this hive mind, how does the artificial intelligence enters the equation, the whole thing?
Well, they have photonic technology. They have implants that they put in human beings. They have holographic technology that can put mind inserts for you to be mind controlled, or they can telepathically through the hive mind connection. It could be organic, not just AI based. They can telepathically control people or send you information that's false into your brain. I've remote viewed several young looking women who've been tampered with by the grays, actually, mind control, to spread disinformation into the disclosure movements. So, you know, it could happen different ways. It could be through AI, it could be through telepathy, telepathic abilities. It could be through photonic holographic projection technology. There's different ways of doing it.
How does someone know, from our point of view, if you are communicating with being controlled by these grays or the AI, and you're unknowingly being an agent of disinformation? How can we know that?
Most people don't know. They think they're getting good information, they're getting positive teachings. They don't know that they're being manipulated. They think it's all good. Somebody coming from the outside, right? Somebody who's a remote viewer, a psychic, they could see the frequency, the bad energy that this person has connected to them. Sometimes it's entities, you know, beings who don't even have bodies, not incarnate. Sometimes it could be AI, sometimes it could be grays, reptilians, or other regressive species that are negative. So the information that comes through is not helpful, is not positive, and it does not, and it's false information. You know, saying something like the Galactic Federation of Worlds is fully working with the secret space programs, and they're going to give us med beds soon. And they're making med beds on lunar space operations that's a base on the moon. Something like that. Immediately, when that person said that, I'm like, uh-oh, that's something not right. And I followed the energy. I'm not going to mention names because I don't do that, but I followed this energy back to that person who said that, and I immediately noticed the grays. There's 5 sets of grays controlling that person, that young woman. And when I followed that back, I'm like, oh, well, that's the disinformation. That's what she was being fed. That's false information. We're not getting med beds from lunar space operation to Earth. So, and their bases are not being retrofitted. Their bases are advanced on their own. They don't need retrofits. So this is how I knew this is disinformation, because I remote viewed that person and what they were being told, and the source behind it, 5 sources. They were being controlled by photonic holographic technology, being told that they're communicating with the Galactic Federation of Worlds, when they're really communicating with grays, controlling their mind to give them disinformation to spread in the disclosure movement.
And unfortunately, that's very common, right?
Yes, it is. Every 2 days I scan myself. I do an intuitive scan of my body, my energies, my physicality. And I look for implants, energetic, physical implants. I look for inappropriate energy. I look for entity attachments. And I can actually tell energetically if somebody's attacking me or trying to implant me with something. I feel the vibration and the energies of whatever's coming in. And I repel it, I block it, I clean it, I prevent it from entering my soul frequency in my physical body, because everything is energy. We are energy, we're physicality. So I always do the shielding, I always do the protecting, the energy, vibration cleansing. Every 2 days I do this because I do a lot of different remote viewing work, psychic work, healing work. So I constantly scan to make sure I'm clean and not infested with anything, not by any negative beings, AI, or whatever else could exist out there, because in this multiverse, there's a lot of different things that are in existence.
Sure. As you said, some people are being, let's say, excessively optimistic about our situation right now. In your view, at which point are we now in this galactic war? Are we close to the end? Not so much. Where are we?
We're in the middle of it. We're in the chaotic middle phase of it, because if there has been many timeline incursions and timeline tampering in Europe in particular right now, what's happening there, that's the result of the Orion collective interference. So we're in a timeline war. We're in a temporal war. The Galactic Federation of Worlds is using all of its resources to basically try to remove the Orion collective, and they're huge. The Orion collective has the Greys, they have the different reptilians, the Sakaris, the Dracos, the Nebos, and they all want this galaxy. So the Galactic Federation of Worlds is fighting them to repel them, not invading us openly. This is what I saw in the remote viewing. This is the situation. And this is a recent remote viewing that I did. They're trying to cleanse the black void. The Orion collective is the black void. So they have a lot of armada ships. They have a lot of resources. Galactic Federation is also armed, but they're not as big as the Orion collective. And they're trying their best to just get rid of them and to keep them from invading evolving civilizations like us, openly invading, not interfering and tampering with us behind the scenes like they've done before. Now it's to prevent them from physically taking us over.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
this is what's going on. And there's mind interferences with certain leaders, global leaders. These beings, again, they can tamper with human minds to burn down cities and countries, to go in human proxies, control human proxies to do it. That's what I've been remote viewing as well. So we're in a temporal war, literally.
Would you say at this point that the usual light has already won, and but we're in the mid? The war isn't over yet, but we clearly have victory from one side, or still not defined?
It's not defined, because light and dark always try to balance each other. So that is not defined, because again, today something happens, tomorrow something else happens, and the timelines and the time streams change. I cannot say the light has won or the dark has won, or which side is more or less. It changes constantly. That I don't tell people the future, because the future is malleable and changeable every 5 minutes or less. So it's always yet to be determined who. What I will say is that Galactic Federation of Worlds has a strong will with many different races from planets working together to make sure that we're not invaded. That's their top mission. That's their top priority right now from the remote viewing. They're working on having more alliances with positive beings coming into, to join the Galactic Federation of Worlds, to stop the reptilians. So they're constantly working on efforts to prevent the reptilians from coming back. Because the reptilians and the Orion Collective were here almost 600,000 years ago. Why do you think so many planets are left almost with no atmospheres or with such hostile conditions? Mercury and Venus weren't that hot once upon a time. Neptune actually had land masses and wasn't gaseous, and so was Jupiter. The reason why these planets were changed so much because there was nuclear war. There was massive war in the Lyran wars with the reptilians and the Greys trying to keep them out. And there was decimation. There were several planets destroyed along the way because they had reptilian interferences. So we're just waking up to a reality of a prior war that happened 600,000 years ago, just starting to remember bits and pieces from past lifetimes and recover from that and to keep the reptilians out again.
After you had an implant taken, how much of your genetic abilities do you remember? So you forgot part of your, I suppose he's talking about your 60 and back experience. And by the way, is it 320 and backs, or is just
No,
60
it's
and back?
160 and back, 160 and back. Through time travel dilation technology, you know, those portal stations that can beam you in and out, they can change the timeline any way they want. They can stretch time, they can make it shorter, longer. 60 years is nothing really. When you're doing time travel, time quantum leap dilation, 60 years could be like a day or two on Earth, really. If they do it properly, it's like nothing ever happened, really. All you get is bits and pieces of memories. And there's also memory engram stations that can wipe your memories. That's what I saw in Planetary Corp. So Nemesis' question is, did I retain my psychic abilities after I psychically did psychic surgery to remove my Neuralink implants? I had 4. For a while, it was harder to track things with my own ability because the Neuralink implants would augment my psychic abilities. Even though I wasn't working for Planetary Corp anymore, the implants were allowing me to see more things psychically. So when I removed them, basically I sort of had to retrain myself psychically to build myself back up to the same level of what the Neuralink implants were augmenting. They were augmenting my abilities to improve them. They weren't giving me my abilities because I've always naturally had psychic ability, and nothing genetically changed. I'm still the being that I am. It had nothing to do with genetics. It had to do with my psychic abilities. So I had to train myself. I took shamanism courses, Native American shamanism. I took energy healing courses, Reiki. I did crystal healing. I also did white light Wicca magic training. Then I self-studied the Akashic records. I did past life regression, soul retrieval, hypnosis. And I took psychic development. So this all sort of helped to build back my abilities to that same level. And what the Neuralink implants were augmenting them. Never lost my abilities. I just had to, you know, when there's brain damage and neuronal damage, neurological issues, that's what I had, because I was left with white matter, brain lesion scarring. That had to be healed with plasma infusions, which I still do each week because my immune system was damaged by the reptilians. So, you know, I literally had to retrain myself in my abilities to boost my abilities with a lot of learning and spiritual development. So I'm fully trained in everything that I just listed by teachers, by credible teachers, and I have the certification for it. So it was a lot of hard work to rebuild what the Neuralink damage did in my brain, with the nanofiber gold leaking actually in my brain. So yeah, I had to rebuild myself, my psychic abilities.
Wow, amazing. Recently, we have been listening a lot about the arcs or the room of, how do you call that?
So it's the Hall of Records?
Hall of Records, yeah. Do you have, did you interact with the Hall of Records or with one of the arcs?
Well, I remember from my past life memories working with crystalline technology on the Andromedan arc ships, and in Antarctica, the Atlanteans had built arc ships, again using crystalline technology. And I had built the Egyptian Hall of Records. I contributed to building it almost 89,000 to 100,000 years ago in a past lifetime as an Egyptian architect priest in Egypt. His name was Calypso. He was a magic practitioner. He also used levitation wand technology to actually move the stones, the blocks that created the pyramids. And the Egyptian pyramids and the Sphinx are older than 10 to 12,000 years. They're try 89,000 to 100,000. Some of the pyramids are even older than that. In Peru, in Romanian Sphinx. So what I had placed in the Egyptian Hall of Records, I created many chambers and mazes so that people can just enter into the Egyptian Hall of Records. You have to be genetically coded with specific DNA to enter into them. So it has to recognize your soul frequency. The technology I remember putting in there was some kind of a ruby refractory telescope that decloaks planetary bodies that are cloaked by cloaking technology, or it decloaks bases. So this refractory telescope is supposed to, it has rubies in it. So it's supposed to decloak things that are cloaked. It literally can take down frequency fields of cloaking technology and reveal what's there. That's what I put in it. That was something I remember doing 89,000 to 100,000 years ago. I'm not going directly on the arc ships now. I'm just writing about what I remember about the arc ships and where I know the arc ships are. And I also collated together information from Jean-Charles Moyen and Elena Denon, because they talk about the arc ships a lot. So I took notes from their interviews and I put it in my book, because I believe if testimony is similar, then you compare and contrast. As a researcher, I do that. So what I found interesting was Jean-Charles Moyen was talking about, it's either an arc ship or a Hall of Records under the Bahamas. And it had this sign of the trident of Neptune on the doorway. And my higher self, Janea, she comes from Neptune and the moon of Titan. And that had a lot of water once, it still might. And she has this crescent moon, sort of a star and a trident on her forehead. So she has this symbol of Neptune, and it's the same symbol carved on that door of that structure in the Bahamas underneath. So this is something I have in common with Jean-Charles Moyen. And when I had studied the crystalline Neuralink chairs in the Atlantean outposts, that's their technology, it had a trident symbol, blue and white, on the crystalline Neuralink chair. It connects your mind and allows you to travel back in time to see events holographically. And he described seeing similar technologies in the arc ships and the halls of records, Egyptian Hall of Records. There's that technology there. So this is what I have in common with Jean-Charles Moyen. And if you guys look at the Peter Moon, Radu Cinemar, Transylvania Moonrise books, Radu Cinemar went into the Egyptian Hall of Records, the Romanian Hall of Records, and he saw this similar holographic technology that allows your mind to travel back in time or even the future sometimes to see events as they unfold with video and audio, like a movie screen playing out in your brain. That's what my Neuralink implants allowed me to do. It recorded everything that I was seeing, hearing, experiencing, and that data would be uploaded to the holographic databases on the Mars bases. So all of this is interconnected.
Wow. I have like 1,000 questions, but I'll stick to Demi's questions. Let me see. Well, back to the arcs. Do you also feel they're being activated right now?
Yeah, they are being activated because, interestingly enough, Neptune is getting warmer. Antarctica is getting warmer. Some of the ice sheets are melting. The activation is happening energetically inside the arc ships. The crystalline technology is activating their waking up mechanisms, literally, energetically. And they're stasis beings inside these arc ships. From what Jean-Charles Moyen said, they're blue. And when I was in Antarctica, I had seen the cryogenic stasis pods with blue-green translucent energy around the pods, crystalline. It's crystalline covered pods. I didn't look specifically at the beings inside because that wasn't the job that I was there to do. I was there to study the technology, the crystalline Neuralink chairs and the cryogenic stasis pods and the quantum crystalline supercomputers that have crystals in the walls of the outposts, the Atlantean outposts in Antarctica. That's what I was there to study. But I did see the stasis pods, crystalline, blue, green, translucent crystal material that makes the pod. And there's beings inside, but I didn't study the beings.
Physically, or
I was there physically. I was there physically. This was after my 16 back. I was sent to Antarctica because I've had Atlantean past lives as a geneticist and as mermaids. So I'm genetically coded to work with that technology, those artifacts.
Wow. Why do you think they're activating now, and what will we see them in the near future, or is it something that's going to take like decades or perhaps a century for us to interact officially with?
Well, I think they're activating for planetary protection and to wake up as many people as possible, because they hold crystalline technology with planetary histories and information. So that's why they're activating. I don't know when we'll be told about them or when 100 years from now, I don't know. That's not up to me. All I can do is release what I know about them from my past lives, what's currently coming from other experiencers that are going on them. That's what I've been doing in my books. So people know the information as much of it as I can gather and piece together. So this is my part to do disclosure. It's our part to do disclosure. We shouldn't wait for others to tell us about these things. If you know what you know and you've experienced it or been on them, talk about it, write books about it, disclose, do your own disclosure. Don't wait for governments or scientists to tell you that these things exist, because they might take forever to do it, as we all know. They're not telling us what's in Antarctica. They're not telling us about that Atlantean outposts with the crystalline Neuralink chairs or the cryogenic stasis pods that are working on crystalline technology. They're not telling us about any of that. And they're not telling us about the Ark ship under Lake Vostok. They're not telling us about the Ark ship near the Baltic Sea. Near that country, but not in the country itself.
Wow. Wow.
So that's just what I remote viewed recently.
And do you know about these blue people? Did you?
My job was not to look at the beings inside the pods. Jean-Charles Moyen is the one that is talking about these blue beings. He said they're bald. All I can confirm is that I studied and saw the cryogenic stasis pods, and it had this sort of green-blue translucent crystalline technology that makes the pods, and the beings are inside the pods. This is what I know from my own experiences in Antarctica. I saw the pods, there was beings inside, but again, my job was not to study the beings, not to touch them, not to interfere, because I think they're still alive, but they're in stasis. So I was not to interfere with anything inside the stasis pods. I was just to study the hieroglyphics and the crystalline technology of the stasis pods. And the crystal computers, and again, the crystal Neuralink chairs and the Atlantean outposts themselves. I was to catalog all the artifacts, to catalog the crystalline discs in these universal knowledge library repositories inside the Atlantean outposts, and the outposts themselves and their locations, to map the locations. That's what I was sent there to do, because I have prior past lives as Atlantean beings, so I could touch the technology, and it's holographically based partially. I could interface with it. So that was my job, to literally catalog how it works and its functions.
Is your twin soul part of the crew of one of the arcs in stasis?
My twin soul, I don't think so. I'm not on any of the arc ships right now. I have past life memories of being on the Andromedan arc ships and helping to build them with crystalline technology, because they're organic and sentient. They're not just made from metal. They're made from crystalline stuff. I don't have a twin soul on an arc ship. Some people might, but that's not me. I don't go
Or
from
twin
soul
flame
level.
or something like that.
Twin flames are different. That's relationships, that's soul connections. I don't have a twin flame on Earth, an incarnated twin flame. I'm not connected to any twin flame.
But do you have an extraterrestrial or multi-dimensional twin flame?
Not that I know of. I have higher selves that I interact with. Janaea,
which is kind of better, right?
Well, they're higher density aspects of my higher selves. Janaea, Andromedan, and Miara Pleiadian, and Elle. She's hybrid. So I interact with them a lot. They're my galactic connections, so to speak. I'm not aware of my twin flame or where my twin flame is. I've never had connections with a twin flame. I know what twin flames are, but I don't have one on an arc ship as far as I'm aware, and I don't know where my twin flame is. I'm just connected to my higher self aspects and different positive galactic beings, archangels, angels, spirit guides, totem animals. I'm connected to those, and I'm connected to nature, Mother Earth, and other planetary systems. So those are my current connections.
Okay, great. What were the relationship between the different factions of the SSP like, or the relationship between the SSP and the Astral Galactic Command and the Galactic Federation of Worlds? How does it work between them? How were, what you witnessed?
So what I witnessed was planetary corporations. Again, that's a military organization. It would do anything to keep the reptilians out from invading Mars and Earth. So they were willing to work with Ashtar Galactic Command, because Ashtar Galactic Command has a lot of fleet ships. They have huge motherships. They have cruisers. They have a lot of things that can protect our planet from invasion of reptilians. So they loaned me out to Ashtar Galactic Command to help out with communications and tracking the reptilian smaller scout ships, to make sure they didn't invade into Earth space, to Earth territory. So if there's a major threat against Mars, Earth, Moon, I'd say that any of these secret space program factions and groups would be willing to work with Ashtar Galactic Command and Galactic Federation of Worlds to make sure we're not invaded. I can only speak for planetary corporations and what they were willing to do. They lent their ships, they lent their assets to Ashtar Galactic Command to make sure to keep the reptilians out of our Earth space physically, so they wouldn't land on the planet and invade. That's what they were willing to do. There's many different SSP factions. There's Mars Defense Force, there's Earth Defense Force, there's Space Force, Space Command, there's Kruger, there's Dark Fleet, Nachtwaffen, Regehr, Monarch Solutions. There's so many different groups. I can only say Dark Fleet is not willing to play well with any of the other SSP groups or Space Command or Space Force. They're sort of the last holdout because there's Germans involved. There's many other, nations involved. So I only speak about Planetary Corp, and they lent me out to Ashtar Galactic Command to stop the reptilian invasion. So some of them are willing to work together when it meets the greater good, the common good of not being invaded by aggressive negative forces.
But
I don't know how many of them work with Galactic Federation of Worlds, honestly.
But some of them work with they're allies of the reptilians, right?
The Dark Fleet used to work with the reptilians, yes.
But it's mainly the Dark Fleet, and it didn't, I don't know, sneaking the other programs?
Again, I never saw any reptilians on Planetary Corp. I worked with a reptilian insectoid hybrid who was part of Dark Fleet, and he was allowed to come in on the Planetary Corp base to work with me, but he's not a Draco. So he was there to help me with genetics. He was like my guide in the SSB. Like Jean-Charles Moyan had a being who's reptilian insectoid looking. His name is Victor. He was working with the Galactic Federation of Worlds. Doesn't mean that Victor is a pure reptilian. Not all reptilians are evil. Not all of them are out to get us. So I'm aware of only Zagor, my guide, working with me on Planetary Corp Mars bases. There was also Nordic beings there with blondes, a lot of blondes, that developed my Neuralink implants on Planetary Corp bases on Mars. So I don't think that all these groups work with the reptilians. Nobody wants reptilians on their bases. So it's negative energy. Nobody wants Dracos, Sakaras, or Nebus, the Greys on any basis.
That's very interesting, because I thought most of the SSP programs were related to these negative groups. So you're saying that's not actually that. Part of it is working with the reptilians, but not everybody. We have like more positive programs too.
I don't think Planetary Corp is positive, but they don't work with reptilians. Planetary Corp is run by off-world humans. It's a corporation. They care about advancing their own technology, regenerative medicine. They're out for themselves, to keep themselves hidden, and they don't want to be seen, heard. That's why they're on remote locations like Mars and Pluto. They have their own research facilities. They have their own bases, Mars colonies. They're independent of Earth. They have Earth affiliates, alliances with certain companies. I have the list in my book. So some pharmaceuticals and aerospace. So they have alliances because it's mutual reciprocity with technology sharing. But reptilians are not on that list of alliances. Neither are the Greys. They're self-sufficient. Planetary Corp is self-sufficient. They don't need any of these beings for technology. So the US Navy military in the 1950s started building out the US basis on the moon on underground. That might have been based on some reptilian gray technologies that could have been shared with them in the beginning, but they're not working with Greys or reptilians anymore. So everybody is very much independent. We don't need Greys and reptilians for anything in these secret space programs.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't expect that. Very nice. Okay.
And you asked if these groups are positive. Planetary Corp is not that positive, but they're not the most evil beings out there in the world either, I would say.
Okay, but if they're humans,
they're humans.
Yeah, we know what we expect from humans. We have some not very nice humans, but still humans.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that this stuff happens in secret in outer space. That's why it's secret.
The fact that you were not easily controlled by reptilians or mentally programmed by the reptilians? Is it a Pleiadian characteristic you inherited, or it's genetic, Pleiadian genetic somehow? Or is it related to your higher frequency, or is it a combination of DNA and frequency?
It's a combination of DNA and frequency. I would say I was never mind controlled by reptilians or greys or anybody. Even in the secret space program, Planetary Corp can control my mind or break me down, break me apart, and build me up. They do that to some people, and they have alters. I never had alters. I was always me, the person that I am, strong-willed and not willing to do certain types of things in my work, even Planetary Corp. Like I never wanted to dissect human bodies to see how they worked. It was done in some of these labs in the beginning. See, to harvest organs and body parts, I would never do that. I didn't want to do that, and I said I wouldn't do that. So my strong will, I'm a dominant personality. Nobody controls me. Nobody ever controlled me. Nobody will control me. And that's one of the high factors for why I'm not mind controlled by anyone. And I make sure I'm not. I put efforts into it energetically, spiritually. I think it's a combination of my DNA, my soul frequency, and just the desire of a strong-willed personality. Personality matters.
You talked about humans with some gifted abilities. These ET entities are interested in using them. Are gifted humans selected because they can bind better for some tasks they need? I suppose, are gifted humans, psychic humans, selected because of that?
Yes, they're selected to be in the secret space programs because of their psychic abilities. And some negative extraterrestrials choose to use humans with psychic ability to actually interface with them negatively to spread disinformation. Yeah, because if you're psychic, you could be used as an antenna to literally spread information. This is why I'm so careful with channeling and channelers. If you allow the wrong type of entity or being to access you physically and on the soul level, because when you're doing deep trance channeling, some other being comes into your soul essence and you step aside. So very careful with channeling, because I only do channeling in private. I don't do it actively publicly, because again, I don't want anybody coming in of a negative persuasion and just using my body any old way. So you always need to be energetically protected and shield yourself against incursions, against manipulation. Free will choice. We have free will choice, and it really works. If you say no strongly enough, these beings can't interfere with you. But if you think ignorance is bliss, then it's not.
Oh well. Did you ever interact with a Brazilian person in one of the programs? Because as odd as it may seem, we don't have Brazilian whistleblowers.
From what I remember in planetary corporations, there was a lot of different human nationalities from different countries working together, and some of them spoke different languages. And my Neuralink implants translated the languages easily. I spoke Spanish and English in Dark Fleet and Planetary Corp on the Mars bases. So there's multiple nationalities, and some of their uniforms had the flags, their country flags from Earth. So I'd say there's many nationalities in Planetary Corp. People think it's Germans and just Germans. It's not. It's not that end thing anymore. It's evolved into many different nationalities, and they're all recruited based on their abilities, their psychic abilities. The more telepathic ability you have to interface with holographic technology, crystal stuff, the more probability that you'd be recruited in these programs. But being chosen and recruited into them is not an honor. Because it's a dark organization, Planetary Corp. So it's not an honor. It's not like I was enticed by technology, by advanced technology and regenerative medicine. That was what and And they wanted to know about my past life memories with the arc ships and the crystalline technology, because they want to reverse engineer that and put it into their own ships. They already have technology to go beyond the speed of light, but they always want improvements, and they want to integrate crystalline technology. That was part of their reason why I was taken, to get my memories and because of my psychic abilities. So it's a little bit of both for me. Can't really speak for other people, but I don't remember anybody specifically Brazilian. I remember many cultures, nations, the neural implants translating the different languages, so I would understand it as English, even though it wasn't English.
Can I ask you something? I heard you speaking alien language in one of the interviews. Could you give us a sample of the languages you like?
I speak different light languages. This one sounds like Klingon, and it was Zagor, I think. I can say a word, Raktanash. Don't be a sellout. It's Raktanash. That's how it's guttural. Zagor only speaks what sounds like Klingon when I channel him or when he psychically communicates with me. He does not speak English. He does not want to learn English. He thinks it's dishonoring his people. And he's reptilian insectoid hybrid, so strong-willed personality as well. He only speaks what sounds like Klingon.
Wow.
And when I do light language, I don't really have control over the language itself, what comes in. There's different intonation, there's different pronunciations, so I can't always duplicate the same thing that I said. With Zagor's language, I can, because we speak on a regular basis. But the most memorable is Raktanash, don't be a sellout.
Wow.
So
Wow.
Raktanash.
Great. Great, loved it. Could you tell us about your book, your work, where people can find you and things like that?
Yeah, sure. So it's a 2-book volume set called Ileana's Star Journeys, with the UFOs, ETs, SSPs, and past lifetimes, volume 1 and 2. And it's out on Amazon. The links are on my website, Messages from a Star Traveler. On my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Awakening Cosmic Reality Show. And you can find me at my website, Messages from a Star Traveler, or at seekingthetruthinreality@gmail.com. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was wonderful to be in this interview with you.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend.